From the aristocrats who awaited Mozart's latest compositions to the pop charts of today, from our desire for the latest fashions to our focus on the latest film or book, the new has driven music and culture for hundreds of years. But that was in an era where access to art was limited. Now we potentially have access to everything. Music from every culture and era, every style, every film, every book. In this unparalleled space, should we escape the tyranny of the new and seek out the best from unknown and uncelebrated places, from distant lands and other times? Is art not about the novel, but about lasting value? Or is the new, though limited by place and time, necessarily more vital than the past? And we have an incredibly brilliantly vital panel to attend to these themes. I have Claire van Kampen on my far right. Claire is a director, composer, and Olivier and Tony Award-nominated playwright. She became the first musical director of both the Royal Shakespeare Company and the National Theatre, and she was the founding director of the Globe. And Claire has recently been awarded an honorary doctorate from Brunel University. I have Ammar Kalia here, who's the Guardian's global music critic. He's also written for the Times Literary Supplement, Clash, and he also plays the drums for the band Oma Rose and is publishing a collection of poetry, Soft Punch, soon. I have Brian Eno on the far left, who is a musician, record producer, visual artist and theorist, best known for his pioneering work in ambient music and his contributions to rock, pop and electronica. And earlier this year, Brian received the Stephen Hawking Medal for Science Communication. And here I have Sophie Fiennes, who's a filmmaker. Sophie's films include a collaboration with Slavoj Žižek, The Pervert's Guide to Cinema, also Over Your City's Grass Will Grow, and most recently Bloodlight and Bammy, in which Sophie worked with Grace Jones over a period of 12 years. And the significant question, I'll go to Claire van Kampen first, is, for 3 minutes, should we escape the tyranny of the new? Claire, thank you.
Well, tyranny, what does it mean? I think it's had several different meanings in my lifetime, but the dictionary definition of tyranny is cruel, unreasonable, or arbitrary use of power and control. I think one of the great benefits of being able to share in a world together, a world of the ether, like the internet, is that we're making decisions for ourselves about what grip we choose to be in. I could say that in my lifetime, there were sort of two waves of tyranny. First, I suppose you could say in the 50s, it was the housewife who was told she should buy the latest vacuum cleaner, the latest kitchen maker, the this, the that. It was a subtle and seditious form of tyranny that was very imprisoning. And then later, in the 80s, came market forces. You need this, you need that, you need it now. It needs to be new. You need to throw this away, it doesn't matter. I think we're in a very exciting new dialogue with what we need to live. And I would say that art has always been part of a dialogue of social change. And so if we're in a conversation with what's new, certainly in art, we're in a conversation with how we're changing as a society. And social change, to me, I think has never been as exciting as it is now. I think in terms of new, what do we mean by new? Do we mean instant or do we mean discovery? The whole of our landscape is changing, certainly in my line of work. I had no idea that Mozart, for example, whom most of us have heard of, was actually inspired by a guy that was the son of a slave owner in the Caribbean. Came to Paris, wrote stunning music, almost self-taught, brilliant Olympic level fencer, dancer, and he was called Joseph Boulogne. He has been rather crudely labelled as the Black Mozart, which I think is not a very helpful label, but what's interesting that we are finding out that there are all kinds of people, men and women, that created art and contributed to art that we, before the internet and before scholars were able to dig into research, these people were lost, undiscovered. Now our landscape is completely changed. So I would say that I'm very excited by what we call new, if it means that we're bringing into our landscape all these new and newly discovered people that enrich and change the way we think about music and art.
Thank you, Claire. I'll turn now to Ammar Kalia for the same question. Ammar, should we escape the tyranny of the new?
No, I don't think so.
Do you want to expand
yeah,
on that?
I will. I think that, I don't think the new is tyrannical really at all. I think that everything new, well, I think it's impossible to create anything in a vacuum. I think everything new is kind of in constant dialogue with the past, and I think that whatever is new and what's being created now can be a kind of a great gateway for people to get to more marginalised stories and voices. And I think that actually maybe we don't give enough credit to people who are creating now in terms of the sort of research and work that they do into making whatever it is that they're doing. So I think actually there's a myriad of references that kind of come through. And I think the great contextual sort of realm of the internet can be really useful for that, because you can kind of get to a new artist and then you can kind of look through, let's say, Wikipedia or Spotify biographies, and then have this kind of information cascade where you're suddenly clicking from link to link to link, and you're discovering stuff from way before which you never knew about before, and which even the artist might have unwittingly kind of imbibed into whatever their practice is. So I think in that respect, the new is kind of, to agree with kind of saying, it's really kind of vibrant and exciting. I also think if you take it from the other perspective, and let's say we don't prioritise the new as much, and we solely kind of look to the past to try and unearth marginalised figures who kind of were not represented, you're equally then turning your back on what is, I think, actually quite a radical platform now for marginalised and diverse voices today. So you're kind of playing a zero-sum game where you're not really kind of engaging with marginality now in favour of engaging with it in the past. Newness as a concept, I think, is always going to be tied towards, or kind of tied to, commercial drives and difference, and I think that's always going to be a kind of difficult relationship to have with the way that we consume. We're always going to have the new shoved down our throats, but I think in and amongst that there can be really exciting space, I think, actually to kind of engage with difference. That doesn't just mean it's not commercial, it's something else that's kind of existing on the periphery, and that can be fresh and exciting.
Thank you. Thanks, Ammar. So the same question to Brian Eno. Brian, should we escape the tyranny of the new?
This is such a difficult question because there are two terms in it that are difficult to understand. One is tyranny and the other is new. So I'll assume that we could come to some agreement about tyranny, but I bet you we would all disagree about what new means. And one of the problems is that humans are constantly innovating. All humans are makers of newness. For example, that last sentence I said has possibly never been said before. And probably you will, or each of us in this room will make at least 50 or 70 sentences today that nobody has ever said before. That means we are, all of us, new and creative. And I had a shocking experience a few years back. There was a show of early 20th century Russian painting at the Barbican, which was an area that I kind of specialized in at art school. It was the area that I thought I knew most about. And I went along to the show and discovered that out of the 160 or so artists there were about 70 I'd never heard of. And they were just as good as the ones I had heard of. And I suddenly realized, of course, that history drops certain people out and elevates some names beyond others, rather like you were saying, that there are all these people get forgotten. But so then I came up with this idea, which I will introduce quite quickly because I don't want to take over here. we're very used in the West to the idea of genius, the idea that there are certain people who are very, very gifted and their thoughts sort of trickle down to the rest of us. And we list those people like Mozart and Beethoven and Darwin and Einstein and so on.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below. Or visit iai.tv for more debates and talks from the world's leading thinkers on today's biggest ideas.